There's this quote by Jerzy Gregorek, this Olympic weightlifter, that I can't help but hear in a thick Polish accent. Hard choices, easy life. Easy choices, hard life. Quotes usually work because they say so much with so little, and this one really goes above and beyond in simplicity. Simply put, Gregorek is telling us that a life filled with pleasure-seeking and procrastination, easy choices, will inevitably lead to a difficult life as one's disregard for time catches up to them. Inversely, a life filled with making the right decisions, which are usually difficult, such as getting out of bed early or choosing between Netflix and studying, will be hard in the present but will also pay off in the future. Your life will be easier. This video is sponsored by Fabulous, the #1 self-care app to help you build better habits and achieve your goals. I'm a busy guy. I have a lot of deadlines both for school and YouTube, and meeting them can get pretty hectic. I also try my best to keep up with my health, but as anyone who has a lot on their plate would know, it's pretty easy to let this part of your life fall to the wayside. Lately, I've been trying to get back into my exercise routine, but it's pretty hard when I don't have any way to plan or at least some guidance. That is until I started using Fabulous, a self-care app that makes it easy for anyone to develop and stick to healthy habits thanks to science-backed daily routines. As a result, you'll feel healthier, fulfilled, and more productive. Thanks to Fabulous, I've been able to establish a pretty diverse workout plan that involves basic exercises, yoga, and stretching, something I used to always forget. Fabulous has really worked for me since it's 100% personalized, allowing you to choose either a sort of self-guided habit building or guided habit coaching approach. A premium membership unlocks all content, and it also lets you restore and back up your journey progress. Start building your ideal daily routine. The first 100 people who click on the link will get a free week trial and 25% off a Fabulous subscription. As F. Scott Fitzgerald once wrote in his charming grammar, "Nothing any good isn't hard," it always seems like the things in life that are the most worth it are also the most time-consuming and grueling to attain. Is this really true, or are we blindingly committing to some sort of Calvinist work ethic? Maybe just because something is hard to do doesn't mean it's worth it. Eating 30 pancakes is difficult but likely worthless. Of course, you can take the hard nihilist stance and argue that even seemingly worthwhile acts such as love or some form of legacy building is worthless in the grand scheme of things. I actually find that Gregorek's words hit on something a little different and a tad more metaphysical, this idea of homeostasis between pleasure and suffering. It's an idea that is famously touched on by Nietzsche. What if pleasure and displeasure were so tied together that whoever wanted to have as much as possible of one must also have as much as possible of the other? That whoever wanted to learn to jubilate up to the heavens would also have to be prepared for depression unto death. Nietzsche was heavily inspired by Schopenhauer, who preached a philosophy of discipline and the limiting of indulgence. His logic was that the absence of desire allowed for a tolerable existence, whereas its presence caused much of our worry and strife. Without necessarily disagreeing with him here, Nietzsche instead suggests that there's some sort of formula where every experience of pleasure will likely be greeted with an equal and opposite experience of pain. And so limiting one's experience at the sacrifice of pleasure will also help us avoid pain. You have the choice, either as little displeasure as possible, painlessness and brief, or as much displeasure as possible as the price for the growth of an abundance of subtle pleasures and joys that have rarely been relished yet. If you decide for the former and desire to diminish and lower the level of human pain, you also have to diminish and lower the level of the capacity for joy. As Nietzsche developed his own ideas, he found this Schopenhauerian asceticism to be kinda timid and inauthentic. He believed that life is filled with suffering, that suffering was inevitable. Instead of avoiding it through a rejection of pleasure, he suggested that we recognize the important role of suffering in reaching what we deem to be good. Nietzsche fully articulates what Gregorek means by easy choices hard life in his idea of the last man. He envisioned a form of humanity sometime in the near future who is the passive nihilist. They know nothing really matters, they feel small and ineffective, And so, tired of life, they avoid any risks and go through day-to-day seeking pleasure and security. They simply make enough to keep themselves warm and full. Nietzsche believed that a society of last men would bring about a world of decay and destruction, making life for them very likely hard. Through consciously pursuing pleasure, they are never entirely satisfied, a concept now called the paradox of hedonism. Even worse, they disengage from higher callings, actions that would benefit them and their society, because to do so would simply be too difficult. Life is inevitably filled with suffering, and as Nietzsche and Gregoric both explain, we can either choose to embrace it and utilize it to find some good, or we can spend our lives trying to avoid it with drugs or sex or mindless distraction. The cruelty of suffering is that the latter mode of being embraces it with open arms. Perhaps the words of Viktor Frankl best tie the two thinkers together. Happiness cannot be pursued, it must ensue, and it only does so as the unintended side effect of one's personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself, or as the byproduct of one's surrender to a person other than oneself.